I had a lot of trauma before the age of 25, and I felt like my whole life, and I don't really want to dwell on that part of it, but my whole life was about adapting, eggshell walking, people pleasing. I lived in this chronic survival mode, and it felt normal to me. And I know I'm not alone there. I know that many of us develop these patterns and habits in our life as children in order to survive whatever is thrown our way. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We were created to be able to adapt and survive, and that's a good thing.
Today's episode is for anyone who is white-knuckling their way through life, convincing the world that they're calm while silently unraveling inside. We're talking about burnout. We're talking about brain science. We're talking about the power of rewiring your response to stress in real time. So sit back, kick back, and let's get started, because this is the School of Influence. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm your host, Devin Schubert, also known as the Man in Orange, and am I ever excited to bring to you this session of the School of Influence. Today's guest is a walking reset button for anyone who's ever felt like they have to hold it all together on the outside while honestly falling apart on the inside. She's lived through more trauma by 25 than most people face in their entire lifetime. And yet she climbed her way to the highest pressure roles in medicine, looking like the picture of strength. Just think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. She doesn't look like that, but just imagine that. But what the world didn't see was that there was a nervous system stuck in survival mode and a woman learning how to heal from the inside out. And now she's a neuroscience-informed leadership coach. She's a best-selling author, and she is the creator of the Micro Shift Reset System. She's showing professionals how to stop being white-knuckled through life and how to start leading with a calmness, with clarity, and with presence. And her story is proof that you don't have to break down to reset. You just have to stop pretending that you're fine. So help me welcome to the school the incredible Doreen Steenland. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here with you. The Man in Orange. I get to deal with him. All right.
Yes, we've known each other for a few years. We've coached together. It's just been an amazing journey, and I've always respected what you do. And so thank you for what you do and what you've been through, and the willingness to be able to be authentic and to share what you've gone through in order to help other people. It's so powerful, because when we share our story, and I teach this, is about our stories are seeds of transformation that we get to plant in other people. And so I know that what the listeners get to hear today about our brain and our nervous system and how much it is dear to my heart, because that's what really broke down inside of me with my son. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about how that all happened and along with your story. So thank you for being here, and share with us a little bit about your background and how you experienced so much trauma. Well, pardon the interruption, but let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your story was meant to impact thousands or millions of lives, but you literally just didn't know where to start? Did you know that there's over 2.9 billion people watching social media every single day? That's literally the biggest stage in the entire world. And yet most people are completely invisible on it. Why? Because they don't know how to tell their story in a way that actually connects to other people. And that, my friends, is exactly why I created Stories to Stages. We help you craft your entire story, professionally edit your video, and then we publish it across all major platforms. Plus, I'm going to give you access to my entire storytelling bootcamp, This is over $25,000 worth of value, but right now you can get the entire thing for just $7. $7. Because this isn't just a course, this is a launching pad. We've helped people with no audience, no experience, finally share their story with confidence and to get real reach. Because your story told in the right way involves and moves people. So go to stories2stages.com and grab your $7 spot with the code of podcast1. Your story was not meant to stay silent. So let's get seen, let's get heard, let's get paid, and let's set people free. So go to stories2stages.com, grab your $7 spot, and use the code podcast1 and get yours today. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, first of all. The School of Influence, I just want to say that you have impacted me as well in our journey together over the years. So thank you for your influence in my life. First of all, I had a lot of trauma before the age of 25, and I felt like my whole life, and I don't really want to dwell on that part of it, but my whole life was about adapting, eggshell walking, people pleasing. I lived in this chronic survival mode, and it felt normal to me. And I know I'm not alone there. I know that many of us develop these patterns and habits in our life as children in order to survive whatever is thrown our way. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We were created to be able to adapt and survive, and that's a good thing, right? And what I discovered is that I spent my whole life chasing this success in order to finally feel safe to be me, right? And in order to finally feel something. For me, it was about the feelings, okay? And I think for a lot of us, we don't realize that our feelings and our nervous system is driving our behavior. So it started in high school, right? I started my journey in healthcare in high school by filing papers in a doctor's office. And then I advanced. I kept striving to do more and more. I became a phlebotomist. I became a nurse's assistant by day and went to nursing school at night. I was the first in my family to go to college. And I came from a blue-collar family, and I knew how to white-knuckle my way through life. I was scrappy, right? And so I spent my life climbing the ladder. I climbed to ICU, CCU, cardiothoracic ICU, pediatric ICU, even the ER. I then was really, 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 really comfortable in all of these high-stress areas. Why? Because that's where my nervous system felt comfortable. That's where I realized that this chronic dysregulation inside of me was it felt like home for me. It felt like home. And guess what? Those tools worked for a while until they stopped suddenly. They stopped working. I tried to become a manager, and I was denied the position, and that stung. It really hurt. But in all honesty, as I reflect back, my nervous system, I couldn't even manage myself, let alone manage other people. Yeah.
How did you know that, things were happening? How did you know kind of your nervous system was fluctuating? How did you know that you were doing well and then other times you weren't?
Yeah. So I noticed that I had these certain behaviors. Something would happen and I would turn to numbing behaviors, right? Alcohol use. I relied on alcohol a lot to calm down what was happening on the inside. Thankfully, I stopped drinking totally years ago, and I'm really grateful for that decision. And it is a decision. Scrolling, shopping, anything I could use, people pleasing, right? Anything I could use to stop the discomfort I was feeling inside. Yeah. And it shows up in many different ways. Like there are ways that we distract ourselves from being fully present with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It's really good. And so as you were finding these things, and you found that, there were some triggers and there were some substitutions that you were, doing, the drinking and the scrolling and all those things. What did it come to a point to where you're like, okay, I recognize this, something has to change?
Yeah. So, it became where you suddenly hit a wall. All of the things that were working to manage what's happening on the inside suddenly stop working. They suddenly stop being effective. And that's when I knew something needed to change. It wasn't about what had happened to me in the past. It wasn't about my external circumstances. It was about my internal landscape. It was about what was happening inside of me that needed to be addressed. And a lot of us go through life, and when we feel stressed, we think, okay, let me change jobs. Let me go on a vacation. How about a retreat, right? All of those things are external ways to compensate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And so as you began kind of going through this, what started to change? Like, what did you tell us a little bit more about the journey?
Yeah. So it was a journey really of self discovery and finding my way back home to who I was really created to be. Um, it cost me tens of thousands of dollars in therapy, coach training, all kinds of certifications. And what I learned is that none of those things replaced the work that I had to do inside.
Mm.
See, I see leadership as the ability to manage that nervous system, to to adapt and respond instead of reacting to the changing circumstances outside of us.
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's so key that, anybody who's wanting to grow their influence, you're going to come up against obstacles. You're going to come up against things that you get to persevere through. When I first started my journey, I went off and started doing very well right at the beginning. And then all of
Mhm.
a sudden, before I went on this reality TV show, I got this cease and desist letter. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, how am I supposed to do anything? I can't. And I had to completely pivot. I had to completely turn things around at that time. And, I could have quit at that point. And I was very stressed and very depressed and struggling
Mhm.
through it all. And like you said, just kind of going into survival mode. And so, as people, leaders or influencers or coaches, as people are starting to dive into these things, recognizing first off that there's going to be things that come your way. And so as you went through that, now you kind of have shifted and you've kind of utilized your experience to be helping healthcare professionals. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Um, what I noticed, I'm one of 12 family members in medicine. So I'm surrounded by medicine, medical talk is our dinner time talk. And what I noticed is that I wasn't alone in my patterns of dealing with stress. Many healthcare professionals are just really white knuckling it through their day. And w- what I discovered is that they are all know they need help. Everybody feels the stress big time, especially right now in our society. They feel it inside, and yet they think that the next vacation, the next job, changing to a different unit is going to be the solution, when in fact, it's not. It's not the solution that they're looking for. It's not because here's the thing, your brain will always find what it's looking for, and it's gonna travel with you to your next location.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Say that one more time.
Your brain will always find what it's looking for, and it's going to travel with you to your next location, to your next vacation, to your next whatever. It's your brain and body are connected, and you can actually put yourself in a different location. But if the inside is the same as it was in the last location, it's just a matter of time before that comes back up to the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that, and I can't wait to kind of dive into that a little bit, because this was my 5-year journey with my son, and even longer. I knew inside of me some of the things that he was struggling with high functioning autism. I knew that he was struggling with prior abuse, and everybody just wanted to put these band-aids on him, and they wanted to address the behaviors. And I said, no, like, all you're doing is making go from one behavior to the next, because you're ripping the band-aid off, and guess what? The wound is still there. And so it was this long battle. And then once we finally did get the diagnosis of high functioning autism, then it was, well, she isn't from the state of Iowa. She's from Chicago. So we won't recognize that she is a doctor that doesn't practice in Iowa. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And so whether it be a traumatic thing that we get to heal from and continue to move forward, our brains are, wired. They can be rewired negatively. They can be rewired positively. And I think a lot of times we get stuck on that our minds can be rewired negatively. But then we go to medicine, we go to all these different things, which not against medicine, that can definitely help in the meantime. But you can also rewire them positively.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear, some of the things that you have to share, a little bit about that.
Yeah. So your brain is what we call it's called neuroplasticity. Your brain is plastic, it's moldable, it's shapeable, and it can change. You are not stuck with the brain you were born with. Right? We get to create new pathways, and pathways in the brain are like pathways in a forest.
Hmm.
Okay? The more you travel down the pathway, the wider it becomes, and the more the weeds get out of the way, right? And the wider the pathway, it's like a superhighway. More traffic can go down it, and it flows down it easier, right? It's the same in our brains. The pathways that we are choosing to use become really wide, okay? And what we want to do is we want to choose to create new pathways that we will then practice and use over and over again, so we can widen those instead of the other ones. It's not like the other ones won't come back every now and then, but you'll have an exit ramp that you could just hop off whenever you need to on command.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say are what are these two different pathways?
Yeah. So now I'm oversimplifying this. I've studied a lot. I've studied a lot of neuroscience. I've sat under really some brilliant people. And a lot of what they say is amazing, but it's hard to apply. So I like to simplify things in the sense that there's basically two pathways that your brain goes down. Now, we know it's much more complex. Um, and when I say pathways, I'm talking about networks. And when I say a network, I mean lots of parts of the brain working together as one. Okay, so your brain kind of picks up different parts and works as a connection, like dominoes, right? When one domino falls, it starts a chain reaction. So there's two major pathways, and one that leads to love and all of the good things, right? Creativity, calmness, um, uh, collaboration, uh, music, all kinds of great things that help us to function at a high level, a high performance functioning area of our brain. The other pathway is more fear based, right? It's more self protective. It's more fixed in its mindset, right? It believes that failures define who they are. It tries to hide. It avoids challenges, right? And when we're functioning from the fear pathway of our brain, which I think a lot of people are right now, it's all self-protective.
Mm.
It's all survival mode. It's just about getting through the day, time to make the donuts. And that is not a life of satisfaction, of joy, of providing value, right? If you want to be an influencer in your life or business, you've got to switch to the other pathway where growth and possibilities are your main attention grabber, right? Because remember I said before, your brain will always find what it's looking for. So if we're looking for fearful things, that's where your attention is going to go. If we're looking for possibilities, if we're looking for opportunities, if we're embracing challenges, that's where our brain is going to look for those things, right?
Wow. I love that. I love that. So what I hear you saying is, if we want to influence, you can't influence well if you're always in survival mode. You can't influence. Like it's impossible because your brain is going to be looking for fearful things. You're just going to be looking for a way out. And honestly, like, is that a way that you want to influence people? Because that's the energy. That's the I don't want to say aura, but
Yeah.
that's what you're giving off as you're communicating with people. And it's not that you can't still have an influence on people, but you give what you receive, and you give in the place of where you're at. And so you almost have to, I hate fake it till you make it type of thing, but there's times to where you just got to compartmentalize that survival part, push it off and adjust it. And I hate saying people shove it down, never shove it down, but compartmentalize it to address it that night, or to find a time to where you can address those things. And I love the two different pathways that our brain is focused on, either love that casts out all fear. And so, yes, we can focus on love, and we can focus on fear. And so we get to make that choice.
Yeah.
We get to make that choice every single moment of which one am I going to choose? Am I going to choose love? Am I going to choose fear? And so I love, what I hear you saying is that love and fear are both contagious.
Yes.
But only one is going to build a legacy. Only one is going to build that influence. And so tell us more about, the short-term results, long-term results. What does that look like to kind of shift that pathway, to shift that road?
Yeah. So I want to just jump on the contagion part for a second, because you mentioned that word contagious, and there's a thing in neuroscience called emotional contagion, right? So if you're around negativity, right, that is what you're going to attract.
Mm.
If you're around positivity or realistic uh, thinking, you are going to attract that instead. Your brain has these cells called mirror neurons, right? And they were created to help us connect with the world that we're in, to help us see people through eyes of empathy. And when we are in the part of our brain that is ruled by fear, we're in like a scarcity mindset where everything is happening to us and nothing is happening for us. Just pay attention to that for a second. That's a slight little shift, right? Happening to you or for you. When things are happening to you, you're a victim. When things are happening for you, you're a victor. You get to solve the problems. You get to rise above. You get to see creative options.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's one of the things that we talk about inside of my Influence Academy is about the shifting of people's mindsets, and how you view and how you change things inside of your mindset is so important. It separates the skill of being an influencer compared to an imitator, because it's so important that you believe in yourself, who your identity is, and, not allow outside circumstances to put labels on you. And a lot of times we do that. Imposter syndrome is real a lot of times. And it all comes down to, we can't allow our emotions to run us. It's that emotional state. And so I love that you're talking about this, and that it's important for, no matter where we're at in our family, in our work life, in our business and ministry, there's going to be all different types of dynamics that we get to come up against.
Yeah. And I just want to pause there for a moment and normalize that your brain will not stay in one state or another full time. Okay. Just normalize the fact that you're going to have ebbs and flows. You're going to have moments where you look to fear, right? You're going to have moments where you see the worst case scenario. You're going to have moments when you feel like an imposter syndrome. The big deal here is learning how to notice that, to step back for a moment and be able to observe it and pause and shift yourself. Say, oh, I've done it again, right? No judgment, no condemnation, no self berating. That's what I used to be great at. I used to be great at beating myself up all day long. I'd call it self-flagellation, right? Beat myself, right? Because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, and I was doing the things that I didn't want to do, right? And so we don't need to live like that. We need to just be kind to ourselves and say, "Oh, I'm doing it again. Okay, now I get I get to choose. I get to choose to take some deep breaths." And taking deep breaths really connects you to your body, because your body and brain are connected. And when they're running separate, there's chaos, and we feel that inside, right? So pausing and just taking a moment to take some deep breaths really gives that space where you can then shift and say, oh, yeah, I just did it again. It's okay. I'm just human, right? And we talk to ourselves like that. We say, I'm just human doing what humans do, right? Humans survive. Humans want to be safe. Humans want to protect themselves, right? That's normal nervous system. But what we get to do is normalize that we're going to flow in and out of there, and it's not a problem. What the skill is, it's learning to shift in the middle of being poked.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Can you give us an example of that breathing? Like, is there a certain amount of time that we should breathe in? Like, does any of that matter? Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. Like, what do you give us a life example?
I would say that, first of all, every nervous system is different. So this is about experimenting, right? So one tool that is super important to remember is, no matter how long you breathe in, and I would ask you to breathe in through your nose, exhaling, right? And prolonging the exhale is an important thing in your body that resets you automatically. Okay. So have you ever noticed when you sigh or you yawn, it's kind of a way for your body's nervous system to reset itself automatically, right? Notice when you're struggling with something and you go, huh, right? That's your nervous system saying, okay, we got to breathe here, right? Because when we're stressed, what we tend to do is hold our breath. We don't know we're doing it, but we're holding our breath almost as if we're bracing for impact.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's all happening subconsciously, and you won't notice unless you bring your attention there and start to realize, oh, yeah, I was just holding my breath at that moment, right? And so one of the major tools that you can use to shift yourself in the moment is your breath. And isn't it interesting that breath is attached to life, right? So when we want to be life-giving, when we want to think of bringing life into our influence, bringing life into our businesses, we need to pause and take that breath. So I'll just do a quick little breathing thing with you, right? And I'm just going to ask you to sit up straight and put your feet on the floor and just feel your feet on the floor. Bring all of your attention to your feet on the floor and see what you notice. And now just notice your breath. There's no problem. You don't have to notice anything. Just see what you notice. And now I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath through your nose, okay? To the count of 4. And then hold for a second. And exhale to a count of 6. Maybe a 4-6. Now, there's the thing called box breathing. It's 4 and 4, right? People breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out for 4 seconds. But I'm going to lead you in just this simple breath where we're going to breathe out for longer than we breathe in. And I just want to notice, Devin, what happens inside your body as you do it, okay? So feel your feet on the ground, sit up straight, and breathe in. And what I want you to focus on is breathing in so that your belly expands, not your chest. Sometimes we go and we want to lift our shoulders up, right? That's breathing from the top part. That's what we do when we're stressed, okay? What I want us to do is like expand our belly. It's so the thing that we don't want to do. We don't want our bellies hanging out there, but guess what? It's good for you. And it activates what's called the vagus nerve to stimulate the rest and digest system in your body. And it automatically calms you down. Okay. So Devin, take some deep breaths in through your nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now come on back and tell me, what did you notice happening in your body? Is there anything that came up for you?
Yeah, I think focusing on the chest and belly thing was definitely bringing me to a neutral spot of that's what I was like kind of focused on, other than what's all going on all around. And also I just felt this shift in my mind of like everything that's going around me, like it doesn't matter. It's like this peace that just came and, you know,
Yes.
surpassed everything. It just kind of fell and did that.
That's awesome. So yes, and that's what's happening. And then in that moment, in that state when your parasympathetic nervous system is kicking in and saying, okay, body, okay, brain, time to relax. That's a moment that we could shift into that love pathway. And, I personally connect with God there, right? I connect with God. Some people connect with themselves. And if you're not a God person, um, that's okay. You do you, but I do my connection with God there. And I talk to God at that moment. God, what is it that you're showing me through this anxiety that I'm feeling? What is it that you want me to see from this stress that's building up in my body right now, right? There's usually some kind of thing that needs attention. Something that needs your attention. Maybe it's a need that's not being met. Maybe one of your values has been trampled on. Maybe a boundary has been disrupted, right? There's something happening. Or maybe it's just, hey, that's from my old patterns, right? That's from my old life. That's from who I used to be. And that's not a real threat that's happening right now, right? So in that space from the love pathway, we can assess and think clearly. But when we're in stress mode, when we're in survival mode, your vision gets very narrow and you can't think clearly. Everything feels confusion, chaos. It feels out of control.
Do you feel like when we're in that fear or survival mode, that there can be triggers that we recognize that are places that are actually places that need to heal? And that when we are in our, I've always called it a baseline through my training, your baseline mode of, normalcy, that then we can begin to address that. I remember I was in a counseling session, a therapy session one time, and we were talking about triggers and all this. And she's like, Devin, you don't have to always be searching for triggers. And then I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm looking for triggers. And she's like, do you recognize that triggers aren't always bad? I'm like, well, what do you mean? I mean, I grew up training trauma and all this stuff. Like, what do you mean? Triggers definitely means negative. She's like, hold on, I'll be right back. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And so she started walking out the door and she slammed the door shut. She stayed in the room. And she's like, did you jump? And she's like, yeah, I didn't know you were going to do that. And she's like, well, were you scared? Did it traumatize you? Did you is it bad? She's like, no. I said, no, I felt bad. And she's like, oh, you were triggered because, your system recognized something was happening. And so it heightened it. So it's still a trigger. It's not necessarily triggering something of the bad. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, totally. And here's the thing, your subconscious brain files things in file cabinets, right? When this happens, when a door slams, there's trouble, right? When my father yells at me, I've got to take cover and hide, right? We make all of these associations and connections, and your brain is a predicting machine. So it goes to the file cabinet in your subconscious and picks out what it knows to be true from past experiences, right? So this is where we get to shift when we pause and breathe and reconnect with our body. We get to shift from those old patterns and notice them, right? Most of us, they're just running in the background like some outdated software, right? They're just running in the background. But when we bring attention to what's happening inside of us, that's when we can change. You cannot change something you're not aware of. Let me say that again. You can't change something that's running in the background unnoticed. You need to create space to see what's happening so that you can activate what I call the energy reset switch, which is your brain's lifeline that habitually flips offline, right? If you can pause and activate that energy reset switch, you can transfer yourself to the love pathway and really make changes in your life that are more permanent. You can shift in the moment on command whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or wherever stress strikes, right? You get to shift. This is a choice that we get to make when we create space for what's happening on our inner world.
Yeah. And I'm just imagining all the different areas of our lives where we can utilize just even these simple few ideas and tools. You're standing on stage, you're getting ready to walk out on stage and you're nervous, you're shaking and doing that deep breathing, how important that is when you're getting ready to do a Facebook Live, how important it is that take a deep breath. I tend to just make goofy faces in the camera, but this would be a whole lot easier. I'm guessing it'd be a whole lot better. Or you're getting ready to walk into a room full of high influential people and like, who am I to be here? No, it resets and shifts you back into it.
Devin, I just want to point out like something you just said was really brilliant and you don't even know it. That you make goofy faces, right? So you tap into humor, which is also in that love pathway. Okay, so that's what you have adapted to learn to ground yourself almost, right? You shift into goofiness, you shift into humor. Some people turn to music. Some people, there are 5 different pathways that we get to integrate as we learn to ground ourselves. I just showed you one.
Yeah.
Right? There's 5 different pathways. And the beauty of this is it's not all the same for everybody. You're not a cookie cutter. You are unique. You were wired to be different than Devin. I was wired to be different than Devin, right? And we get to tap into what works for our nervous system so that we can balance. Now, that breathing, for some people, holding your breath at the top freaks them out. They cannot stand it, okay? So if that's you, just eliminate that part. What we're talking about is being psychologically flexible here. Make sense?
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I love it. I love it. Awesome. And I hate to bring this to an end because it feels like we're just getting started. But I know that you also have like a challenge coming up, right? You have a challenge that you can invite people to in order to help them dive into a little bit deeper. If you guys want to step on the stage and you have these things, or you're diving into survival mode, or maybe you're getting these triggers that happen that are bringing up these things. Is this something that would help them get through that?
Yeah, so this 5-day challenge is a perpetual challenge. You can join whenever you want, but here's the thing. It's going to walk you through step by step ways to shift. It's called the Shift Happens challenge, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to shift. My system is called the Micro Shift Reset System for a reason, because you don't need to overhaul your whole life. You don't need to wait until you're healed perfectly to step out there and influence the world. You don't need to wait until you have the perfect job, the perfect website, the perfect whatever to jump out there and start what you've been called to do. What you need to do is make tiny little micro shifts in the right direction so that you could do what you were meant to do without being ruled by the inner turmoil inside, right? That inner turmoil is what slows us down as influencers. And I want to tell you that is your number one leadership skill you can determine. Managing your nervous system is a leadership skill. Not everybody can do it, but great leaders always do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So we'll have the links down below to be able to join this challenge, to be able to follow her on all the different platforms that she has. And I can't encourage enough to dive in and be able to manage yourself and step into the next level of what that looks like. So thank you so much for being a part. Is there anything that you'd love to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to say stress is your soul asking for space. And it's the start of your sacred reset. It's the start of your healing. It's the start of you stepping into your influence and leadership. Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, what I love about this conversation is just how raw, how real it was. That you didn't just bring us some polished leadership principles or skills, but you were brought through a battle tested truth. You were brought through this You were brought through the truth about burnout. You were brought through the truth and learned about this dysregulation and survival mode, and that no matter what the costs were, you brought it through. And even more, I love that you brought us hope. You brought all of us hope that if you can do it, we all can do it. And that there's a real influence that isn't just built through our intensity, but is built through our intentionality. And that we get to choose love over fear. And that this doesn't just change our brain, but it changes our entire legacy because of the ways that we influence other people. And maybe most importantly, you really reminded us that stress isn't just a weakness, it's a signal. It's an invitation for us to reset, to reconnect, and to lead from a place that actually sustains us to continue moving forward. And that when we step into that fully, we can truly make a real positive influence in people's lives. We are always making influence. We're always having influence. It's either positive or negative. And so your choice today is, which one will you choose? To influence out of fear or influence out of love? And for today, school is dismissed, but your influence never takes a day off. So stay bold, stay focused, and go and leave your legacy. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.